Hello and welcome to match day 3 of Championship Predictions from the Honest Sport Podcast. I'm Craig Savage. With me is Mr. Daniel Cody. Let's have a quick recap of match day 2. And it was more points this time around. 2 perfect scores each. Daniel Cody got in the first 2 in Peterborough's 100th minute winner and Barnsley's 1-0 win against Coventry, despite their last minute penalty for Coventry that didn't go in. My 2 perfect scores, are in Cardiff's 2-0 win at Blackpool and Reading's 2-1 victory against Preston. So overall, Daniel Cody gets 12 points to my 10. So overall, it is 1-1 in match day results. Let's start off at match day 3, the first midweek fixtures of the new season. Let's start off at Oakwell. It is Barnsley versus Luton Town. Daniel Cody, first of all, let's get the little bit negative out of the way. Is Jordan Clark. We wish him a speedy recovery from a concussion. It looked awful. Let's say Sam Johnson's attempt to win the ball. He had every right to win the ball. It's just unfortunate. But overall, Luton Town's performance before the injury was terrible. And after that, they were absolutely superb.
What I would say for the Luton performance defensively, they didn't really get tested on the opening day against Peterborough. And I think we saw against West Brom in that first half that it was pretty evident we were missing our first 3 choice centre-halves. And it actually had an impact there. And to be fair, we're not a club with a budget that can compete with that on a regular basis. So it looks like 2 of the 3 aren't far away now, and hopefully that will resolve itself. But going forward, Luton look a very different animal this year, and that's a huge positive. Barnsley, of course, they were solid, they were convincing, but Coventry did have their chances late on, obviously including the penalty. They were caused a little bit of trouble. 8 out of the 11 players got booked on Saturday, I think. It was a crazy game in terms of fouls. So I'm a little bit concerned that the Marcus Shop style might be a little bit too aggressive, but it might just be one game. I'm not going to read too much into it. I honestly can't split these sides. I mean, Barnsley have already proved me wrong. They're not going down this year. They're going to be all right under Marcus Shop. I'm going goals galore because I fancy both to be better going forward and at the back. 2 apiece to start off.
I think Luton want to bounce back quite quickly. He said the goals are there for them. West Brom probably say that they look tired by them, but I don't believe that at all. I think that we just up the energy, and I think the momentum kind of killed them for West Brom. Barnsley, good result, 1-0 win at home. It's going to be another tight game, but I'm going to go for a 2-1 Luton Town victory. Up next at Bloomfield Road, it is Blackpool versus Coventry City. Blackpool, a disappointing 2-0 home defeat.
Yeah, I think we've seen from Blackpool already, with the type of players they've got and the way they play, they are going to probably have it slightly easier away from home this season, ironically. There's still a big miss in the middle. Obviously, Elliot Embleton, they had on loan from Sunderland last season, and he was flying for Sunderland at the weekend, ironically. They haven't quite got that same dynamism, I guess, in midfield. Coventry, though, been a weird start for them. They beat Nottingham Forest, albeit not convincingly. Then lost at home to Northampton in the cup with a rotated side. And I think it's fair to say they still need to do a little bit more in the transfer window. They've got a couple of holes in the squad. Still haven't really replaced McCallum at left wing back. And the goals dried up again in that game, which was a shame. But I think this is going to be a good match. I really don't have a clue what score to go for, to be brutally honest with you. So I've just had to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline because I'm not sure. 1 apiece because it's the safest thing to do at the moment.
I'm torn, to be honest. I'm not sure.
Your face suggested you had the same result as me there.
I was thinking 1-1. I was actually thinking 1-1. I can't think of any other scoreline. Blackpool, to be honest, looking at the stats from yesterday's game against Cardiff, 8 shots, 2 on target, had all the possession though. But this is against Cardiff, who don't really want possession. The worrying thing is Cardiff has 17 shots and 8 on target. So that has to improve for Blackpool, to be honest. Coventry, missing a penalty in the last minute is never ideal, to be honest. I'm going to go 0-0. Because I don't see either team winning this game. I don't know. I know there'll be a goal in this game, but I just think I don't want to go the same scoreline as you. So I'm going to go 0-0. Up next, it is Huddersfield Town versus Preston North End. Huddersfield, absolutely disastrous. Even with an extra man, they were totally hopeless.
I mean, some of the goals were just comical. I mean, the first one for Mitrovic with the back pass and how that went. A couple from set pieces, which were awful at the back. And I was watching Matty Pearson obviously quite closely because he was at Luton for the last few years and did quite well for us, albeit not convincing at Championship level throughout. And he sort of struck me as a player. You know, when you don't trust your other defenders, we've all been in teams like that, and you end up trying to chase and cover all their positions and getting done yourself. And he struck me as that. He was chasing out to right back, then got sat on his backside a couple of times. And it was just a really poor defensive display. But The positive for Huddersfield is they're playing against the other team that have started the championship season with the worst possible defensive record in Preston. These are two sides that we both said we think will be challenging in the bottom six this year. Preston weren't convincing against a Reading side that haven't been able to do anything all summer. I think this is going to be goals galore again because neither side can defend. But of the two, I back Preston slightly more. So I'm going to go for Huddersfield 2, Preston 3. But this could literally be any score.
Do you know what? So this is not going to be the best of games, but it's going to be one of those silly games where the defending is absolutely shocking, but there'll be goals galore. You'd say 3-2 to Preston. I'm going to go 3-3. Don't know why. You can clearly tell I don't really want the points this week already. Anyway, up next, it's a London derby. It is Millwall versus Fulham. For Fulham, the only negative is Harry Wilson getting sent off.
Stupid, needless red card as well. Not a great bit for Fulham there, but then Cavallero came off the bench and looked $1 million. So there's not a worry for them. That's the squad depth that you've got when you're challenging to get back to the Premier League. I don't really know what to make of Millwall, though, at the start of the season. It's been very strange, very tight, and everything would suggest that it's going to be the Championship's favourite scoreline because that's all Millwall have done in the league so far. But I just think their style's going to match up against Fulham really well. I think if there's a type of game Fulham are going to struggle, it might be this one. And we saw it late on against Middlesbrough to an extent when a team went more direct. So against all odds, and I'll probably be one of the few people that's gone for this, I'm going to back Millwall to nick it by 2-1. And I know that could be very stupid.
Yes, it is, because I've gone the opposite way. I think they have enough quality. Millwall, I think you was a bit surprised on Millwall, but I think it was typical Millwall because they drew quite a lot of games last season. They've already drawn their first 2 games in this season. So you can either see it going either being a draw or a Fulham win for me. And I'm going to go for Fulham to win that game 2-1. Up next, Peterborough United versus Cardiff. Peterborough, well, comeback in stoppage time.
Peterborough, I've got to be fair to them. And you're absolutely right about the stoppage time comeback. I really criticised them for fitness against Luton. They looked absolutely gone after 45, 50 minutes. To come back in stoppage time in the second half and win, that takes fitness. So they've obviously got a bit more into the legs now. And they had to sacrifice the League Cup game to do so. They're coming up against a Cardiff side that look very good, though. Kiefer Moore off the bench again with the goal. James Collins looked a threat all game. I mentioned Ryan Giles in the pre-season one, being a natural left winger who can just put a delivery in. And his cross for the goal for Kiefer Moore was just sublime. And we're going to see a lot of that this season. So nothing's deterred me from Cardiff getting promoted yet. Peterborough, though, they're getting their attacking players fit again. Marriott was involved. Sariki Dembele, obviously back off the bench to get a winger, important player for them. And Johnson Clark-Harris looking a bit fitter too. So I'm going to back Peterborough to get a goal, but Cardiff will win comfortably. 3-1 Cardiff, because Peterborough, a little bit poorer at the back.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Cardiff's quality will have a bit too much. I think if this Peterborough defence got bullied by Luton with pace, I think this Peterborough side get bullied in the air. I think Cardiff have enough. I'm going to go for 2-0 Cardiff win. Right, next up, it is Swansea versus Stoke. Both of these two teams picked up goalless draws over the weekend. What can you make from that?
Both teams pretty poor going forward. Stoke actually looked good against Reading. We said this last season. They had 6 boring games in a row and then would just be involved in a thriller randomly. I'm not sure that's going to happen here. Both teams do have their frailties at the back, but they haven't hugely been exposed yet. But Stoke on the road, I fancy more than Swansea at the minute. I think it's going to take Russell Martin a little while longer to get settled in, particularly in terms of free-flowing football going forward. Andre Ayew, a big miss from last season. They haven't improved hugely in that area of the pitch. I'm going to go for Stoke to nick it by 2-1, but every bit of me was saying it should have been 1-0. But for some reason, I'm going 2-1.
I don't know. These fixtures are not the best this week to me, to be honest, to predict. So, obviously, both these teams picked up 0-0. Swansea, I think Swansea lack a bit of creativity going forward. When you lose Andre Ayew, it doesn't really help. I'm going to go for Championship's favourite scoreline. I'm going to go for 1-1. I'm going to play safe, sit on the fence. Next up, it is Reading versus Bristol City. Do you see Bristol City's wheels have already fallen off?
They've not really got moving, to be honest. Obviously, I guess the one positive to get out of the way is that Andy King got his goal after coming in the summer, one of the few signings we've seen. Thomas Callis came back on off the bench, but he's been unhappy at the club. Naki Wells was off the bench, but they haven't got a strong enough squad at the moment. They need more work, and you've got to back a manager like Nigel Pearson. Reading, good to get off the mark, but it was a narrow win against a really poor Preston side. It's something that hasn't filled me with confidence, to be honest. But of these games, again, they're playing another side in disarray. So Reading to nick it again for me, 2-1, because, again, I can't see either side keeping a clean sheet.
No, nor do I, to be honest. I don't see either side giving a clean sheet. I'm actually going to go for a bit of a wild one again, but Bristol City will start with 1 point after 3 games, in my opinion. I'm going to go for a Reading 3, Bristol City 2 victory for the home side. Right, up next, it's Birmingham with a half St Andrews against Bournemouth. We moan about Harry Wilson getting sent off for Fulham. Would you say the same thing for David Brooks with Bournemouth?
Yeah, really silly. Thankfully, I guess in this instance, again, it didn't cost the team he was playing for. But I don't know what it is with the Welsh internationals that are back at the start of this season. There's something going on there. But
very feisty, aren't they?
Exactly, yeah. But David Brooks missing this game, I actually think is going to be a real loss for Bournemouth, because Birmingham are the sort of side that even at home, as we saw against Stoke, will sit people behind the ball and won't be afraid to try and hit teams on the counter-attack. They know that's their best chance of getting results, and Lee Bowyer does it very well. I mean, 3 clean sheets to start the season. You can't ask for more than that, because you won't lose a lot of games. So having that loss of creativity could be a real problem for Bournemouth. As a result, I think Birmingham are going to keep their unbeaten start to the season, but I think Bournemouth will too. I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline. I think Birmingham concede their first goal of the season, but they're competing with everyone at the moment. Lee Bowyer deserves so much credit.
Yeah, he does, to be honest. It's nothing spectacular from Birmingham getting points on the board. It's absolutely fine. Where are they in the table? They're 10th at the moment, 4 points in 2 games. Obviously, there's 10 teams on 4 points. No one's got a perfect record at the moment, which is incredible, which is actually typical of the Championship anyway. Bournemouth, tough point against West Brom. Excellent 3 at Forest. Do you know, I'm going to go same way as you. To be honest, I think this will be a good game. I'm going to go for 2-2, actually, in Birmingham versus Bournemouth. Right, up next, it is Hull City versus Derby. Hull got a bit of a reality check, losing 3-0 to QPR. Derby, would you say the lack of experience has cost them 3 points, to be honest?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, let's start with Hull first, because they weren't actually that bad against QPR. There was a spell at the start of the second half at 1-0 where they really knocked on the front door for a little while, but they just couldn't break through. The goalkeeper, Rob Dickie, made a ridiculous defensive clearance if you take aside his goal for QPR. And then obviously after the second goal and the red card for George Moncur, which wasn't a great challenge, it was never going to be a comeback after that point. But it wasn't all doom and gloom for Hull. I think what we've got to bear in mind is defensively, they're still a little bit fragile, which Preston couldn't expose, but QPR did. But they're coming up against the Derby side where, a bit like Peterborough at the weekend, they'll be thinking this is must win. Derby, for all of it being the inexperienced squad overall, it was Nathan Byrne who made the mistake for the second goal. You know, they still got an experienced centre-half partnership, Curtis Davis in there at the back. Their first 11 isn't that inexperienced defensively, and I think they will be a little bit more solid in this game. But I'm still going to back Hull to win it. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Hull City, but it's going to be a very close game, this.
Yeah, I think Hull will bounce back, to be honest. I think that sums up. I think the 3 games that we've seen so far, including the League Cup, when we don't really pay attention to the League Cup first round, but it's kind of, you can see the same pattern, I think, with Derby, in my opinion. But they are getting goals, but I don't think they're going to get goals in this game, to be honest. I'm going to go for Hull 2, Derby 0. Up next, the result is a 0-1 at Derby. It is Middlesbrough versus Queen's Park Rangers. Middlesbrough back to anyway, not much possession, but get the result. QPR taking full advantage of the extra man. Where do you see this 0-1 performance go?
This is the stinker of the week to try and predict. I really haven't got a clue. QPR, do you know what? They weren't brilliant against Hull City, and they were poor defensively at times. But both of their first 2 goals were exquisite training ground set-piece routines, which is something that is always nice to see at Championship level and shows how effective they can still be. And coming up against the Middlesbrough side, who are going to be direct, who are going to be really forceful in the air, like most Neil Warnock sides are, having set-piece routines that keep the ball on the deck could be a way through them. So I'll be interested to see if they work 2 games in a row. Middlesbrough, always a threat. Great to see Uche Ikpeazu off the mark for Middlesbrough. It was against a poor side, so I don't know how much to read into it. I can't split them. I have to go for a draw. Championship's favourite scoreline. QPR better on the road, Middlesbrough better at home. So they'll cancel each other out.
Oh, I don't know. I think QPR might sneak this one. They're taking chances. QPR didn't really take chances last season. First half of last season, should I say. They did in the second half of the season. You do get your game from Middlesbrough that they just have an absolute stinker at home, and this could be the one. But I'm going to go QPR to sneak this one 2-1. Up next, it is Nottingham Forest. They are at home to Blackburn Rovers. Forest, obviously, 2 losses in a row, same scoreline. Blackburn, to their credit, got absolutely battered on the stats, but they got a point.
Absolutely, and against a very tough Millwall side as well. The Nottingham Forest thing is really starting to confuse me now more than anything, because how can this set of forwards be so lacking in quality of front of goal? I don't understand it. Again, 15 shots, only 5 hit the target, and 1 goal, including against 10 men. It's the pattern that we spoke about for about 40 weeks last season and said, surely this has got to end at some point. You've got players like Joe Lolly, Lyle Taylor, Grabban coming off the bench. I don't understand it. There's got to be something, a mental block of some sort behind the scenes there that's causing this, or something in the style of play, because it's too long now to be a coincidence. Blackburn, as a result, are a team that, like you say, have taken chances this season. They weren't brilliant against Swansea, but nicked the win. They didn't have much of a sniff against Millwall, but got the result. And Ben Brereton Diaz is making Adam Armstrong look like a really good bit of business, because him and Gallagher up there, they've got goals in them. And if they can improve the other areas of the team, Blackburn could actually go from being a worrying side this season to a bit of a threat at the top. Blackburn win it for me because Forest can't score more than a goal in the league. I'm going to go for 2-1 to Blackburn.
I think this would be a draw. To be fair, as I said, Forest had all the chances again in their game against Bournemouth, but they didn't take advantage of it. I don't see it happening. To be honest, I think they will score again like they have for the last 2, but it's still going to be just the 1 goal. And for Blackburn, I think it'll be the same scoreline as they had at the weekend. So I'm going to go for the Championship favourite scoreline of 1-1. And the final game is 2 teams who were recently relegated from the Premier League. It is West Bromwich Albion versus Sheffield United. We said about Luton early at the start of the predictions of how excellent West Brom were, but compared to the second after the break of the injury, just killed them, and they looked very vulnerable at the back.
There will be a lot of concerns for them defensively, and it was their Achilles heel last season in the Premier League, to be fair. But going forwards, they didn't have to do a huge amount to score their goals, but they did that against Bournemouth, so we know they've got quality there. Sheffield United are the polar opposite, and none of us expected this under Jokanovic. Against Swansea, I mean, it's one of the worst games I've seen this season across the 2 match days. There was barely a chance in it, and Jokanovic is now producing a 0-0, 1-0 side, which is very bizarre to watch. So everything would suggest West Brom will win this comfortably. They looked far more prepared, far more settled, despite both having a new manager. But West Brom got some of their transfer work done early, and that makes a big difference. So I'm going to go for a comprehensive, comfortable 2-0 West Brom to finish off what I've predicted as a crazy set of scorelines this midweek.
I think West Brom win this game. I think they were ruthless. I know Luton kind of gave them a goal, or maybe 2 or 3, because I think that the set piece wise, I think that set pieces were very crucial for West Brom. Sheffield United will be, I think, player wise, will be a bit taller, so it might be a bit harder. Can always appreciate a long throw, by the way. Just going to make that clear. Always appreciate a long throw. But I think West Brom have enough quality in them to win 2-1. Depends if Sam Johnson stopped rushing out of his goal, because there's a few times he did that. Not just obviously for the injury, but there's a couple of times after he rushed out his goal and looked hopeless. So West Brom for me to win 2-1. And let's have a quick recap of what we predicted in this midweek edition of the Championship. I've gone silly, to be honest, with a 3-3 draw between 2 teams who have been absolutely terrible so far this season in Huddersfield and Preston, and a good game in Reading v Bristol to be 3-2 to the home side. Daniel Coe's going for a 3-2 win for Preston at Huddersfield as well, so he's going to think goals galore in that game. Other than that, pretty tight everywhere else. And those are our predictions for this midweek. Do you agree with us or disagree with us? Let us know in the comment section down there. And while you're down there, give your predictions for this midweek. Give this video a like, subscribe to the Honest Football Podcast, and you can follow us on Twitter at Honest Football Free. And we'll see you next time.